Imagine this with me, my friend. What if you were in another world where you're filthy, mind-blowingly rich, every single problem you have is solved with cash, and in this world, you can buy literally anything and everything. So what do you think about that? Pretty thrilled right now that you have money to burn, right? Well, that is exactly what today's story is all about. Our main guy has money burning a hole in his pocket and wants to buy everyone out, but can he actually buy people's minds? Or what? The guy right in front of you, my friend, is Kambe, a police detective who's big time. He comes from a wildly wealthy family, but unfortunately, his parents passed away and left him a massive group of companies that import literally anything, in any form, anywhere. He lives life to the absolute fullest, is insanely good at his job, pulls off anything with complete ease without stressing over a single detail, yet he feels completely bored in his life because of his daily routine. On the flip side, we cut to another guy named Kato, for whom today was his very first day on the job, also working as a detective in the exact same department as Kambe. As Kato walks in, police cars are speeding past in the streets, and he doesn't know the reason, so he stops one of the officers to ask him, but the officer refuses to tell him anything, leaves him, and walks away. But Kato was curious to know the reason behind the chaos they were in. Being a rookie who wants to know everything, unlike his colleagues who just knew how to pass their day and call it a night without bothering about anything. At that time, Kato heads inside to receive his new assignment, and for his very first mission, he's asked to secure a car festival taking place right in the middle of town today. As for Kambe, he was returning from his vacation in Japan on his private plane until he finally arrives in the city at the exact same time Kato takes one of his colleagues to head out and secure the festival. On the way, his colleague confides that he wishes to know the place where the richest people enjoy themselves and try, even just once in their lives, what their life feels like, unlike Kato, who prefers to start from zero and couldn't care less about being broke. Suddenly, as they're walking down the street, they encounter Kambe's car, the absolute latest model, completely pitch black so you can't see who's inside, this year's model, and not just anyone gets to ride it unless they have real money. Kato's colleague wishes he could own a car like that for even just one day in his life, but Kato doesn't pay attention to any of it and takes him to the festival site immediately to start their work. Over there, a conversation takes place between them about the prince of another country who will attend the festival today and must remain safe the entire time. But suddenly, news comes to them that a bomb is going to explode at the festival, specifically targeting that foreign prince. At that moment, Kato rushes to inquire about any information that has reached them so they might locate the bomb. During that time, we see a young guy and a girl walking in the street looking for any jewelry shop to rob. However, all the shops they pass were heavily secured until they spot a luxurious shop from the outside with no guards on it at all. At that moment, they decide to rob this shop and make a quick escape. But when they enter the shop, they're shocked to find out it's actually a chocolate shop. But because they've already embroiled themselves in a robbery, they can't just leave like that without anything. So they decide to steal whatever comes their way, even if it's chocolate. Hey, at least they walk away with some benefit in the end. All this while, Kato is trying to find the car in which the explosives will be planted, but he can't seem to find it until he receives the description of a specific car. Just as they turn their heads, they find it right in front of them, and by chance, it turns out to be the exact same car used by the guy and the thief girl. Just as they are about to move, they are surprised by the girl and the guy rushing out quickly, and the girl even shoots at one of them out of pure fear. But the gun turns out to be a total dud. Nobody gets hurt, and it merely delays them for a bit. However, Kato sprinted right after them without waiting for anyone to go with him. At that time, he spots the same black car, Kambe's car, ramming through all the cars, aggressively trying to force its way across the road. But Kato spots a mother and her young daughter fallen on the ground, and the car was about to run them over. So he runs quickly to signal the car to steer in another direction, and indeed, he manages to save the daughter and her mother. Then he runs to the car to arrest its driver, who was basically Cam, his colleague in the police force. But as soon as he opens the door, Cam blows cigarette smoke right in his face, completely unbothered by anything. They realize he's a detective just like him, coming to monitor the security setup here. Meanwhile, the thief guy and girl were escaping in the car while the police pursued them from every direction. The girl is even enjoying the situation they're in and wants to live out a bit of action, completely unaware that the bomb everyone is making a scene over is sitting inside their car. At the same time, we turn to Cam, who, upon seeing the prince's car, is amazed by it and decides to buy it. The prince laughs at them, thinking he's some lunatic, and quotes a massive price. But Cam doesn't negotiate. He grabs him by his clothes, slams him to the ground, and transfers the money he requested directly to his account. That's when we discover that Cam's bank balance has no limit, meaning he can do whatever he wants and buy anything he likes without his balance even being affected. In the end, he takes Kato with him into the prince's car and speeds off to join the chase from the start. To shock Kato even more, Cam calls his assistant and tells him to pay compensation to all the people who suffered damage because of him. Kato is baffled by his style, throwing money around right and left for no reason. The problem now is that the car they are pursuing was heading toward a place packed with people, and they can't catch up with it at all. That's why Kato suggests they evacuate the entire city before the bomb explodes on them, but Cam had a different opinion. He reaches the car's location quickly, takes advantage of its presence on a drawbridge over the river that splits in half normally, and decides to drop the car into the river so that when it explodes, it doesn't put anyone in danger. At that moment, the boy who was with the girl abandons her and leaves her in the car alone, meaning she's going to die. Kato acts on pure instinct, leaping onto the car to save the girl quickly. At the very last moment, the car stops near the river, the bomb explodes, and both the girl and the boy are safe. As for Kato, he was still hanging off the bridge, and Cam walked over to check on him without even extending a hand to pull him up. It was clear Kato was extremely annoyed by Cam's reckless behavior that put them in danger. The next day, Kato goes to work completely normally, but he meets Cam at the station for the first time, especially when their chief introduces them. Kato is really annoyed with him because he exposed him to danger yesterday and didn't even bother extending a hand to help him. That's why he waits until break time, goes up, and chews him out for what he did. Cam thought he was just greedy for some cash and offered him an amount as compensation for what happened. But Kato didn't care about the money at all, cursing at him for that rude behavior. "Do you think you can buy everyone with your money or what, man?" This was completely opposite to all their colleagues, who loved that they had a fellow detective who was rich like that, with all of them clinging to him and trying to get to know him. Anyway, another mission comes up for Kato and he goes out to work on it, but Cam insists on going with him. Kato tells him, "Man, I don't want you with me," but Cam insists on going with him, and of course Kato can't stop him and lets him be. Anyway, they manage to arrest a drug dealer and take him in to interrogate him at the station, but Cam insists on going in to interrogate him himself to ask him everything he wants. The dealer refuses to tell him the location of the drugs or who their owner is. At that point, Cam offers to buy all the information he has with cash, meaning he'll pay him the price of everything he tells him just to close the case right there. But the dealer acts like an honorable man and refuses to give up or snitch on his boss. At that time, Kato had seen the whole situation and felt that Cam treats people as if they are tools he can buy with his money, which is not a good thing in their job because they won't be able to bribe everyone they meet. But he is surprised when Cam comes out from the dealer's room, telling them that he got all the information he wanted and saying, "Let's go guys, so we can wrap up our case early." It turned out to be a clever move on his part when he cornered the dealer and made him confess everything without paying him a single cent. Because of this, they keep tailing this person for several days until they gather all the information they need, leaving Kato looking like a zombie from lack of sleep. Suddenly, he sees a woman who was with that same second dealer, so he runs after her until he finds her entering a very luxurious building. Because he didn't know what this building was exactly, he thought it was a hotel due to its luxury. But the bigger surprise comes when Cam walks in on him. Kato wonders how Cam knew the girl's location without tailing her, and forget everything before this, because Kato is stunned to find out that this building actually belongs to Cam. And the girl who was with the dealer turns out to be working as Cam's assistant, doing all this to execute his instructions from the start. In other words, Detective Cam planted her among the drug dealers to pass him all the intel he needed. At that point, Kato feels completely fooled. "Guys, forget this work. I'm leaving to work my own way. I don't like this rich people's method, guys." Since Kato likes the traditional method at work, he decides to bring down the whole ring himself with Cam's assistant's help. He disguises himself as one of them and enters a party attended by all the city's dealers. He actually decides to head deep inside and sees a completely different world, but his cover gets blown easily and he was about to get beaten up by the guards, if not for someone dressed in a mascot suit running over to help him, escaping with him to the rooftop. Kato thinks it's Cam and is surprised that Cam is acting out of fear like them normally, but he's shocked to find out it isn't Cam at all. It was his other colleague who came with him. Cam was actually the one who sent him to fetch the dealer's phone, while Cam himself appears arriving in his helicopter to rescue them. Because of Cam's method, they manage to solve the case, find out the source of the drugs, and arrest everyone connected to the matter. So Kato gets really annoyed, scolding Cam for his method. "Man, I don't like your way. I like the traditional way. It's easier. I'm not going to exploit my money just to solve my job." And Kam replies to him, saying, "Well, I'm not going to wait until I get transferred to another division like someone here." Kato is shocked by what he says, but it turns out Kato came to this station because of a case he failed in where he accidentally killed a person. So those traditional methods he keeps giving us a headache about didn't help him at all. On the contrary, they harmed him more and transferred him far away from his family. Kato was one of those people whom you could pile all the work on while they are happy to do anything under the pretext that they are working and efficient. But in reality, he is naive because he agrees to anything offered to him normally. And as luck would have it, his manager sends him to an international conference, so Kam goes with him too, and pretty much, their names are officially bound together now. Anyway, days pass, and it so happens that he goes with Kam to his house. There, he meets Kam's grandmother who is responsible for him, whom Kam fears and respects immensely. Old Kato doesn't stay quiet or say a few nice words about him. No way. He tells the grandmother everything. "Your grandson is throwing money around everywhere without a care, exploiting his influence and authority at work, and ruining everything completely." Of course, as soon as the grandmother hears these words, she yells at Kam, "You shouldn't annoy people with your behavior." On top of that, she tasks Kato with taking care of Kam and keeping an eye on him, basically making him his guardian. "I see you're a good, honest man, and my grandson will surely learn a lot from you." Of course, Kam was fuming inside, wanting to jump up and slam him, but he maintained respect for the grandmother sitting there. Anyway, Kato couldn't wait to hear those words and spent the whole way giving Kam advice. "Don't do this, don't walk like that," basically controlling him to the fullest, while Kam didn't care or execute a single word of what he said. The next day, Kato is traveling to the city by train as usual and gets to know his seatmate, a student who had lost his motivation and wanted to travel to America by any means possible. Kato keeps handing out advice everywhere to anyone until he gets off the train and hears the station worker asking people to clear the area. He runs over to ask him the reason, identifying himself as a police officer. The worker tells him that there is a confrontation, or in plain language, a fight, happening inside an old train parked over there. Kato doesn't delay his request and runs to check out the situation. Anyway, when he reaches the train, he's shocked to find it's the exact same student who was sitting next to him, but he was trying to commit a crime, holding a person at gunpoint and threatening him with a gun. Kato reminds him of himself, that they were sitting next to each other a while ago, but the student plays dumb and pushes him out of the train car. Kato steps out to call his station to inform them of what's happening, but he meets the local station officers responsible for the area, who turn out to be his former colleagues. At that moment, Kato remembers the accident that caused all the problems and transferred him in the first place. We cut to a flashback to see when Kato went out with his colleague on a mission to arrest a criminal. Kato handled it and shot him in the arm. Up to here, everything was fine and there was nothing wrong since he shot a criminal. But what wasn't normal was that a girl was standing there who turned out to be the criminal's girlfriend, so she took his gun and wanted to take revenge on Kato. At that time, to protect himself, Kato shot her and killed her. Even though he was protecting himself, he killed a citizen without right, and that was the reason he was transferred. Returning back to the present, we see Kato walking sadly over what happened, deciding to leave the mission to his colleague and continue his work. But as he walks out, he is surprised to find Kam standing outside, who takes him and they walk. As they are walking, Kato hears the officers talking over the radio about the student who is making all this noise, labeling him a dangerous criminal who must be eliminated. At that moment, he feels sorry for the poor student because he isn't what they say he is, and he decides to go back down to help him. Of course, Kam doesn't delay his request and joins him as well. They keep tracking all the events through the radio to know where to enter, and they hear the officers dealing with the kid, so they decide to move immediately. Kam operates his car to make it pump smoke inside the train to distract the police, and they enter through the back door, waiting for the right opportunity to free the hostages. However, the exact same situation that happened to Kato in the past occurs when the girl pointed the gun at him. The kid holds the gun and points it toward Kato. At that moment, Kato thinks a million times about killing him, if not for Kam's intervention, who talks to the kid and calms him down completely. The kid lowers the gun, and they manage to arrest him. Because of this situation, Kato thanks Kam for what he did, and for the first time, he feels that Kam is a good human being and not just a walking bank vault on feet. And that brings us to the end of part 1. Thank you all so much for watching and following along with the journey. If you enjoyed this series and want to see us dive right into part 2, let's try to hit 100 likes on this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with future recaps, and drop a comment below letting me know who your favorite character